What's up, guys? Welcome to today's podcast. Today I've got a really special guest joining us, Tay Hawker here from New Zealand, then the US, then back in New Zealand. Thanks for coming, bro. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
This is an exciting chat, man, because we've never had a professional agent join us on the show. And I mean, that's the ambition for a lot of athletes. You know, they want to go professional. And there's a lot of dodgy stories out there about pro agents. So hopefully by the end of this podcast, people will know that you're a legend. You're good at what you do. But before we rip into this chat, and I know we've been talking for the last half an hour before this podcast was filmed, before William told us to jump on the mic, but let's start from the ground up. Where are you from?
Yeah, so Auckland born actually, Wanganui raised, and spent a little bit of time in Indonesia between that as well with Dad's work. But I'm a Wanganui collegiate graduate, and then obviously went overseas. So Wanganui, I rep Wanganui.
I got to say, in my last year of high school, New Plymouth Boys High did beat collegiate in rugby.
Wouldn't have been the only time they did as well.
And so you spent some time in Wanganui, and let's fast forward it to your senior year in high school. Mm-hmm. When did you start thinking about going to America? Because you spent a bit of time there, didn't you? Yeah,
so I spent a long time there once I did leave. But no, I don't know what it was. I've seen a lot of younger kids be like this now, but I was so obsessed with American sports growing up. I caught glimpses on YouTube and stuff, and just thought this is incredible. What the entire presentation of what they put on in the States is second to none. I think European football would be the next closest thing as far as the general show and resource they put into it. And then my last year at collegiate, I was hell-bent on going to the States. So I was taking my SATs and everything, and I didn't have a platform sports management at the time, and so I did it all on my own. Started reaching out to colleges in the States, getting my film out there, and was really lucky to get an offer at Lindenwood University in St. Louis, Missouri. It's a D1 program out there to play rugby. Got my film and everything done, and sent that over, and got a full ride offer. And I got offers at the major state schools, the LSUs, A&Ms, and everything. But with rugby, especially at the time, a lot of those big schools don't have great rugby programs, and so Lindenwood had the resource to provide a full ride, and so Dad basically said, yeah, mate, that solves that.
It's a great program. I mean, Lindenwood are actually talking to us today about one of our own recruits that they've got an offer to him, so hopefully he gets to go there.
Awesome. Yeah, let me know, because I know the place like the back of my hand at this point.
Yeah, we actually will probably get you on the phone call with his dad, to be honest.
No, let's do
that'll
it.
That'll be a good shout.
Yeah.
And so you spent a bit of time at Lindenwood, but you also spent a bit of time at a few different universities, didn't you?
Yeah, so, a few social trips to go visit people at universities on spring breaks and stuff. But I got my first degree in sports management and minored in marketing and political science at Lindenwood, and then had a bit of a job in between, which we can get into. But then got my master's in sports law and business at Arizona State University. So that was, I worked at universities as well. So I've been all over.
Because you were at Old Dominion as well, right?
Yeah, I was working there. So I oversaw student athlete development there, which I did while I was studying at Arizona State as well. So awesome. A lot of student athlete development stuff.
Because I remember we were talking, and I told you that my friend Ali Borhani, who was the head tennis recruiter for Platform Sports, he's from Phoenix in Arizona, and he was actually at John Rahm's wedding. John is PGA Tour winner. Amazing golfer. You actually knew him, right?
Yeah. So the ASU community is pretty small, so John Rahm, Phil Mickelson, and things like that do come around more often than not. So I had a chance to meet a few of those guys on a number of occasions. So my ASU has my heart. Arizona has my heart. It's a God's country, I call it. So really cool place.
Apparently Arizona State University was the only one to offer John Rahm a scholarship.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently he just hustled his way through and did really well. I mean,
really well.
There must be something about these college sports facilities, and the resources that they get. Coming from New Zealand, where we're such a rugby-centric country, and that's if you are playing for the All Blacks, you are a big-time celebrity here. Going to the US, where rugby would have been an emerging sport back then, we're talking, 10 years ago? Nearly 11 years ago. How was it like? What was your first impressions?
Yeah, so I went over there, and I can tell the story now, but I definitely had an ego when I went over there. I thought, I'm going to America to play rugby. I'm from New Zealand. I'm going to show these guys how to play rugby. And man, it got smacked out of me the first week of practice. I always say the Americans are bigger, faster, stronger. And so the only thing that they perhaps lack, and I don't want to sound like I'm talking derogatory towards them, but their decision making is a little bit different because I have been holding a rugby ball since I was old enough to hold a rugby ball.
Sure.
So it does come a little bit more naturally to the foreign student athletes there. However, they are fast and brutal and good athletes, and so that got shaken out of me. But at the same time, Lindenwood had a really good program that brought in a lot of academy players. So we played with a ton of guys from the Brumbies, the Sharks. Leinster had some guys down from up in Europe, and so we were, as much as I thought I was going to go and show Americans how to play rugby, not at all the case. It was hard. It was difficult rugby.
Wow, that's really interesting to hear. I guess because do you know Chris Brown? He's a former USA Sevens men's coach, the rapper.
I don't know him, no.
Chris Brown, not that one. Chris Brown from New Zealand.
Yeah.
He's actually from a small town called Inglewood, just out of New Plymouth.
Yeah.
And great tennis player. Got to give him a shout out.
Yeah.
And he was coaching the USA Sevens men's team and USA women's team. And you see like Perry Baker, former track star, playing on the sevens, and you're like, wow, these athletes are just freaks.
Athletes. And I've always said if they can figure out if they can play as much rugby as we do, it would be a dangerous country. They've got the resource to put behind it. But I think we're a little ways off that purely because it's in our blood here. So it's a little bit different in that sense. Like, for example, after I was done, I started playing semi-professional rugby in Arizona and was playing first five, and I'm a number 8 by trade. And so I made the switch because it was a little bit easier for me to run the game at 10 compared to the Americans that may not. So, there was little things like that. But like I said, they're tough. They're good rugby players.
The amount of players that are actually going to the States now, not just for college, but also pro. I mean, there's Tay Walden. I used to play tennis with them back in the day in New Plymouth. Had a great career with the Highlanders and so on. And he's just gone to New York, I believe.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people that are starting to go there, isn't there?
Yeah, we represent most of them.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
So the MLR is a really cool emerging league there. They've had their woes when it comes to their financial struggles, some of the teams there. But overarching, I think they're going to survive. There's been a few rugby leagues that have popped up there over the years. But now the MLR really has developed a potential landing ground for young talent, and I think it's really cool. I met with a young boy from Wanganui, he didn't go to collegiate, who's playing at Lindenwood right now, and he's kind of got a goal of the MLR, which I haven't seen before. Obviously, kids that are saying, I'm not going to stay in New Zealand for New Zealand rugby. I'm going to go play college rugby and then try to make the MLR, which is a very viable dream. I've seen a lot of guys do it from Lindenwood and other schools as well. So it's cool that there's another opportunity for young rugby players. Yeah,
I mean, our recruitment manager, William, was actually talking to a college coach in the States, and they said quite a few of their trainings are actually integrated with professional teams as well, and they all train as one. It must be a great way to get scouted, right?
Oh, 100%. There's no better way than playing in front of the coach. So, I imagine that's probably Life University with Rugby Atlanta would be my guess off the top of my head, but there's schools around all those
there's like
major
Mount
programs.
St. Mary's as well, and AIC and so on. And it's just great to have these athletes get an opportunity. I mean, we could chop it up all day about rugby in the States, but let's move into the topic that I really want to get into. How did you become a pro agent?
Yeah, so I am one of the people that never, ever wanted to be an agent. I had no dream of being an agent. It wasn't a game plan where I meet a lot of kids that do want to be agents from a young age. I kind of stumbled my way into it. My first job in sports was in scouting with the St. Louis Rams when I was in St. Louis. And I wanted to go into personnel. I wanted to work on the team side. Really enjoyed helping athletes in that sense. But these agencies get such a bad rap that I just wanted to stay well away from it. And as I mentioned earlier, I went into student athlete development, and now that is essentially agency for college athletes before NIL. And that I helped with essentially everything off the field, whether it be obviously the homeworks, keeping your head on straight, good life decisions, life skills, bank accounts, all that. I helped set up a lot of the trainings around all of that. So it's essentially somewhat of an agent for college athletes. And then NIL came about, and I saw an opportunity a bit ahead of the curve before it did go legal. I was helping, I had helped a ex-partner of mine. She had quite a big following on social, so I was familiar with the influencer marketing space. And then I knew this law was going to be passed and had college experience working with universities. And so I essentially went away and started something. I didn't really know it was going to be an agency, but wanted to develop a platform that would enable student athletes to have support, both legally and from the brand development side, on that college space. Now the law got passed, we got involved. I started my own agency. Then, as businesses develop, we found that we had a real opportunity to move into the professional space, and that was going to be where a lot of our revenue would come from. Influencer marketing is great, but as an agency, it's hard to make a full functioning agency just off influencer marketing commission.
For sure.
So we moved into the professional space. We had a lot of interest from professional athletes that wanted support in that brand development, personal brand strategy. So I moved into that. I was doing that full time, and then that's how I kind of fell into being an agent. And then next minute I was doing professional contracts. And candidly, I can sit here now and we can talk about the move back with Halo, and I'm sure we will. But I can sit here now saying that I get the most thrill out of professional contract negotiation. And then equally, I would say personal brand strategy is another big piece of my job.
That's incredible. And you keep mentioning NIL. And I know what it is.
Sorry,
but I know there's a lot of youngsters and also parents listening to this that probably don't know what that is. Could you explain what NIL is?
Yeah, so the people that I'm talking to right now, I have to be careful of how I explain this because it's not fully available to international
It's
student
still
athletes.
Quite great. Yeah.
So for Americans, American citizens that are in college, they can make money based off their name, image, and likeness, not for their ability on the field. So what that essentially means is that you can be a pseudo influencer, you could coach, you could speak at events, you can sell merchandise, and make money based off the image you've developed over the years of being an athlete. The challenge is that as New Zealanders going over there, you'll go on an F1 visa, and on that F1 visa you can't make money while you're there outside of your campus. There's regulations around there. I tell every student athlete that goes over there to either get an attorney or work with mine. And there's a lot of fine print. For example, I do represent student athletes that are currently over there, and we do work around things when they come home, because when you come home, you can do as much as you want. So I work really tightly around the travel dates, work with brands in New Zealand or whatever country. I work with Canadians, English, a couple from England, and we work with the brands there to say, all right, they land on December 17th, they're going to leave on January 15th, here's our activation dates, and we can get after it. But there's a lot of work to be done. I've been on countless forums and boards and everything trying to pass different legislation with the Department of Homeland Security. I'm losing optimism by the day on that, but so that's essentially what NIL is.
It's tough. It's funny you mentioned working on campus. I literally had a parent who's actually a really good family friend of mine. She phoned me, and her son wants to work and do some coaching off campus. Yeah. And I was like, I don't think that can happen, unfortunately. No. It's just tough. But I mean, pretty much like the name, image, and likeness rule, what's great about it is you get guys like, let's say J.R. Smith, right? NBA champion with the Cavs, LeBron James, nearly lost it for them. Yeah. And he's decided that he wants to play college golf now, and he's playing at North Carolina Agriculture and Tech, right? Yeah. And so he's having a great time over there. But now what he can do is sign golf gloves and then sell them and make money off it, but keep his NCAA amateurism status while banking. It's great. And I think wasn't it LeBron James was the one that started that movement on his uninterrupted platform that he had. He started chopping it up, and he said that the reason why I didn't go to college in the States was because I couldn't earn any money for my mum. Yeah, and so he went professional right away. And so by doing this, you can do that and also get an education. Yeah, it's. I think it even benefits people that aren't J.R. Smith, that don't have the money already. Exactly. But there's I will say, and I'll speak lightly around it, but I'm glad to be out of the industry of as into it as I was, because it has become really murky. The collectives have made it really difficult for people to understand what is pay for play and what's not. We saw Rashada, I forgot his first name, but a quarterback going to Florida, pulled his commitment after he didn't get paid the day he got there, which is pay for play, which has got
Twitter is a wild NIL. Twitter is a wild place, but there's a lot of accusations going around.
Yeah.
And, so the fundamental basis on why NIL came about is amazing. It's really cool to give those freedoms back to the student athlete. But the NCAA has dropped the ball on developing some level of regulation due to antitrust issues and everything. So there's going to be some change, I'm sure, but overarching, I'm glad that they got the freedom. So.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a great thing, and I think just advice for any students listening to this, that if a company does approach you, just go straight to compliance on campus.
Yep.
And just
really
be straight up with them. Don't try to hide it.
No.
I know Barstool Sports started adding everyone
Yeah.
as what they had Barstool Athletes or something like that. And everyone's now got on their Instagram bio at Barstool Athlete. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think they know the rules, to be honest.
No, that was a headache.
Yeah, it can be brutal. Did you get into, have you have any athletes dabbling in that? Or
Yes, no, I had to have meetings with a lot of them. It's not as cut and dry as people wish it was, and it's also from a brand strategy point of view, you've got to be really careful about the deals that you are doing. You can't just be a walking billboard. So the fact that everybody put free Barstool advertising across their social pages for some sweatpants and a hoodie it's devaluing your brand significantly. And so really smart move from Barstool. I'm not going to knock Barstool.
David Portnoy, he knows what he's doing.
He did his thing, and it worked out. But the tens of thousands of athletes that thought it was a good idea, I was shaking my head because it was just a free promo that they fell into.
Yeah, well done. You just made them more money.
Yeah, 100%. Did well on it. So
In terms of becoming a pro agent, whether it's golf, I know you represented golf athletes, gymnastics, everything. What do you have to do in order to be a professional agent?
So learn from my mistakes. I can do this.
I love this.
So when I started my agency, as I mentioned, we went into this personal brand space, and that was the key thing. Because we did that, we didn't hone in on an individual sport. So when we did turn into a professional agency, I was learning how to be an agent in sports that I had no business to be an agent in, tennis being one of them. Fortunately, I had Austin Weber, who's a tennis guy that has now taken over that division of the agency. Really great dude, and I don't know what I would have done without him. But you have to hone into these sports that I didn't really understand, and it dawned on me when I was running all our books, and I remember Googling what does a golf agent do? Because I was trying to figure out whether they get paid by the person or just commercial, etc. And then I was like, why would any agent be Googling this while I'm already in? It's embarrassing. So I had to take a step back and be like, all right, this isn't the game plan. I'm not going to pretend to be an agent in all these different sports. It's just wrong. And so I took a step back. I kind of identified the sports that I could be an agent in and ran with it. I had an extensive background in American football, an extensive background in football, and rugby was there as well. So really honed into those. The gymnastics side is a little bit different. I still work with the gymnasts because they only do commercial opportunities, and there's no agency in the sense of I'm not negotiating with the school, their competing contracts or anything. It's just commercial ops. So I'm more of a brand manager than I am an agent for the gymnasts. With that being said, on the other sports, so to answer your question a bit more firmly, how to get into agency, my tips would be firstly, become an expert in your sport. So if you choose your sport, I don't advise being an agent for multiple sports when it comes to their playing contracts. You really want to become an expert. Identify what qualifications you need. Most of the time you're going to need a master's degree, and then some level of licensure. It's a little bit different down here in rugby. Football's a little bit different down here, although FIFA's just stepped in. And then, for example, when I did the NFL exam and everything over in the States, it was $2,000 to take the exam.
And that wasn't a 2-hour test, was it?
No, I think it was that one took day. It was a two-day seminar, and then it was a 4-hour exam. But it was all, it was very intense. And I had studied for about 4 or 5 months before that.
Wow.
But they do it very well. I want all federations around the entire world to require that level of effort to go into being an agent, because here's the other thing with being an agent, you need to build a really good relationship pool. I hate using the word network. I don't like the idea of networking. I like building friendships, and that's it. I don't believe relationships should just be for your professional gain. So you build really good friendships and a relationship pool, people that you know and trust you. But then you have to understand that you have a massive responsibility as an agent to serve your clients and sometimes not expect anything back and put them before you. And a lot of agents don't fully understand that. I think that's why we get a bad reputation. But at the end of the day, I don't like the narrative of me just working for my client. It is a partnership. Sometimes I need them to call me when I need them to call me. I need them to do what they say they're going to do. So it is a two-way street, but I have a massive responsibility to make sure my clients are happy and they get what they want and their dreams come true. And I can kind of delve into the women's football side a bit more, but being a women's football agent, I work in a space where the ladies are quite often undervalued, and we're in an industry that they need more advocates, especially from straight white males, and so I'm trying to be that voice where I can. And so in that case, if I'm gonna send a client to a different country, making sure they got housing and a car and there's going to be food on the table and they're getting paid enough at the right time. And I work in a slightly different industry where I'm going from the NFL where they're getting paid millions and they're going to be fine.
Different kind of money,
you go from that to now I'm more of like an advocate, making sure they're fine and everyone's happy. But I'm going to be frank with you, I love working in women's football much better than American football. And I know that, don't use that as a soundbite, but it is way more rewarding. The girls are harder working, kinder, more grateful, just better people. And I really love being in that environment because it fulfills me every day compared to, I felt like I was just working for nothing in many cases. And so it drained me. And I know I'm young, so I shouldn't be saying I was drained, but it got me. So I love what I'm doing now.
100%. You put a lot of effort and a lot of heart in as well, and there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into this role, right? In terms of like becoming a FIFA agent, I heard you got to do a FIFA exam now. Is that right?
Yeah, so FIFA stepped in this year actually, weeks ago, and put new regulations into the commissions that we can make. And they're coming out with a full exam worldwide this year, which is really cool.
Means everyone's legit then, right?
100%. So something New Zealand does that is a little bit different is we have an accreditation system. So you have to do a few rugby contracts before the NZR PA will allow you to be accredited, which they obviously prefer players to work with accredited agents, which is great. It would be really cool to see a license that's put in there, and then accredited agents mean you're really good. So you are accredited means you're a good agent. License means you're allowed to talk to a player, because I think it would be really good to have that level of security. So that players know they're working with someone who's read the collective, they understand how contracts work, you can prove a background check would be nice, like
not
things
just
like that.
Just a wheeler and dealer.
Exactly. So and it might be one of those scenarios where, if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't mind laws coming down, which I certainly don't. I think there needs to be a little bit more regulation in some sports. If we can all match, NRL does a good job. If we can match the NFL level, that would be really cool to see. I think all agents should be studying for 4 or 5 months before taking an exam, because we are putting athletes' lives in our hands, well-being of their lives, I should say. It's not their entire life, but I've heard horror stories of agents putting players in countries that they should not have been in, with no resource, away from their families, not getting paid. And I can't even imagine if that happened to me. So we have a responsibility, and I think that means that we have to work really hard to be up to par.
100%. Now let's talk about college versus going professional right away. I know a lot of the athletes, sometimes in the last 8 years we get athletes saying, I don't want to go to college, I want to go pro right away. I mean, it's a widely debated topic. I know I raised this topic before we started filming this podcast, and then you were about to answer, and I said, actually, let's wait till we get into this. What's your thoughts on it? So I think my background obviously paints the picture that I'm pro college. And so I always say do the college thing first, and I think post NIL even, or just the way the American college system works, it is a really cool opportunity for you to compete at the top level and get an education. And that's what I'm going to be, that guy. I'm always going to circle back to education. I believe education is incredibly important. Tertiary education is incredibly important. To set yourself up for the rest of your life. Those degrees still mean something. I know trades are important, and I respect the hell out of them, and so I'm all for that. But I think there just needs to be that understanding that your sport's going to end.
100% it's going to end. You will not compete until you're in the grave, and you need to make sure that you set yourself up. The challenge, and basketball is a prime example. You don't need to graduate to go to the league. Same with football, American football, and so it's not ideally set up there right now. I would love to do away with the one and done rule in college basketball, and require more education, or like football is okay because by the time you go to the draft, you're only a year away from graduating anyway.
Yeah,
so,
you're talking about soccer, right?
No, sorry, American football.
American football. Yeah.
I would need to go back to that. I got used to calling it soccer.
Yeah.
But with American football, you need to have 3 years in college before you can go to the draft. And so by then, a lot of guys are doing online, their last year online while they're at
just
whatever
finishing
facility.
It, right? They've spent so much time.
And so, my argument is that by going pro straight out of high school, you are rolling a really big dice on your career. And so maybe there are a population of people that if you are winning everything, you can't lose, and you are the number one at every sport every event you go after, you're the best. Maybe. And even then it's a maybe, because you don't know when your next injury is going to come and that could end it all. But by going to the States, you get to play at that same high level. You get to compete against some of the world's best. You get the best resources that I've seen in the world, and you get an education along the way. And so you can come out of college, or if you get really good, you can drop out too. I'm not advocating for that.
Cameron Norrie, 1 year at TCU, right?
But it's not something I want to suggest.
Yeah.
It's still an option. I just think that going there, you get so much better at your sport, for lack of a better term, while still getting the degree. So I always advocate for going to college.
And universities also have a give back policy as well. Like if you do really well in your first year at college in the States and then you get offered a pro contract that you cannot refuse, some universities actually say go and do it, and then we'll just fund your study online. We'll give you a tuition scholarship online, and we'll use your name to recruit other athletes. And I mean, Cameron Norrie goes and trains at the TCU facilities in the States, and I think he's 26, nearly 27 years old. And there's other guys as well, like Ben Shelton, Florida Gators. I watched his match yesterday. He lost to...
did he lose?
He lost. Sorry if I spoiled that for you.
No, really good.
He played Tommy Paul, another American, at the Australian Open's tennis, and it was a quarterfinal. He lost, but... Mate, went to college. He started at number 6 in his freshman year, worked his way up, which was just incredible. So he's always got that base, that family, that group of people that are like really wanting him to succeed in the pro circuit. So I think that going to college is great. And also, like, don't you reckon the maturity of a person as well? Like the life skills that they learn?
Yeah, mate. I mean, I could get into all of that kind of stuff.
That's important, right? When you're looking to represent an athlete, you want to represent someone that's a good person, right?
Yeah, mate, it's everything.
Dealing with stress at a high level.
Yeah, well, even being in scouting and at that level as well, the personality is massive because you're in a pool of so many talented players that you need anything that will make you stand out compared to the rest of the group. And if that is your maturity, your ability to lead, be a team player, be coachable, etc., which is all things you learn through college, you can learn and get better at in college, it could be the thing that makes you stand out to someone else. If your sprint time is the same, maybe you lift the same amount, you've scored the same amount of goals. If you're splitting hairs, who's the better person? And so you come down to that maturity. Outside of that as well, I've found in hiring, I worked around a few different industries making ends meet and was in managerial positions. And in hiring, we always looked to student athletes because they knew how to be on time, show up, be coachable. I loved hiring student athletes because you learn a whole skill set that you otherwise wouldn't learn. Really big advocate for getting that experience.
Because it's learning to deal with pressure. It's constructive criticism that you're getting from your coach every day. It's time management, organizational management. Learning how to be in a group environment. And representing a brand that's much bigger than yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. There's a lot of benefits that you can get from it that I found, and especially individual sports like tennis and golf. That's very lonely. Going into an environment where you're part of a team, you're going to develop so many more skills. If you're being annoying, you're going to get put in place, aren't you?
Yeah, and you learn not to be annoying. And I think the golf one is one that resonates as well, given that you play in a team environment in college over there, and that team is very team orientated. I
Yeah.
represented a golfer at the College of William and Mary, and she talked a lot about how much she loved her team, and it was really cool to see such an individual sport where they got to do trips together, they stayed together, they played to win together, all their points accumulated, etc.
How good do athletes have to be? I know there's a lot of young male and female recruits listening to this that want to go pro one day.
Yeah.
What are the levels to it?
It's a hard one because the way the system is set up over there, because of the three college, well, there's more divisions, but the three main divisions, you do have to be somewhat smart about the level you go into if you do want to go pro, and the sport varies as well. Individual sports is a little bit different. If you want to go pro in, say, football or soccer, the school you go to is very important, because scouts look at certain schools or certain areas or have relationships with certain coaches, so the team becomes important. If you're individual, I think slightly less important, because if you're good enough, you're good enough. But because it's you can measure a bit for track, if you run a certain speed, you're going to show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's black and white. With the team sports, it's a little bit different. It's a bit more subjective, and so you do have to be cautious about the level you go into. If you do want to go to the next level, have a look at the school, how many pros have they had before, talk to the coach about their relationships with current coach, scouts in the league, because the agents as well. Agents are involved with coaches. So you have to be pretty smart about the level you go into, and I think be self-aware too, because that's something I see a lack of in young kids wanting to go to the States, is thinking they may be better than they are, and like what I did. And you do. Fortunately, I held my own at Lindenwood, but you do have to be cautious, because if you want to go pro and you think you're at X level, and then you go to, I'm trying to think of solid schools for certain sports. I'm pretty sure Florida for tennis, let's say, and you go there and you can never get into the top 8, and you never play, and
Never
then
get
you're
into
3
the
years.
lineup. You're on the bench.
You're 3 years in, and you think you're going pro, and you've never played. You've just shot yourself in the foot. So you need to find that right level that you're going to play, you're going to get game time, you're going to get better, you're going to get developed, and set yourself up. And that's why you need to work with a platform sports management to make sure you're plugged in. And so make sure that you you work with someone that understands those levels though, and can put you in the right place to succeed. Because with the hundreds and hundreds of universities, it's very easy to misread a website and think you're going to something that you're not.
Yeah, and I think that there's two different athletes, right? There's athletes that are good enough that can earn the right to go in and compete at that high level right away. And then you've got other athletes that maybe were late developers.
And that's
late
fine
developers
too.
in their sport. And maybe they had a growth spurt when they were 17 years old, and they still feel like a giraffe on roller skates in their senior year in high school. That's okay. They just have to go and use the college that they're in, which is giving them a great opportunity of playing time and scholarship, and then look for a transfer.
100%.
Transfer's so common, isn't it?
Oh, mate, and especially in the last year, it's become wild. Transferring's a lot easier than it used to be. So a really good option. Something to certainly think through. It's not an easy one. It's not like you just up and move. But it's much more possible. And if your focus is going pro, it's probably worth doing it, because I often talk about the academic restraints of transferring based off your making sure your credits cross over. And
you got enough credit hours.
Your PTD makes sense, and you're not getting pushed back in your degree. And this is where I might be contradicting myself in the education piece falls off. But if your only focus is going pro and you need to transfer to a Power 5 school, you may just want to go and jump and do that and deal with the academic punishment on the other side.
And what's cool is the exposure on the other divisions, right? You got Division 2, Division 3, NAIA, junior college. Jimmy Butler went to junior college. There's so many great success stories in that. And I mean, that's moving into our next topic that we're going to talk about. But I mean, I just saw the other day, there was Simon, our head of soccer, our director of soccer here at Platform Sports. He sent William and I, we got a little group chat going, and it was a tweet that he found, and it was an MLS club that were looking at 2 Division 3 men's soccer players. So there's a lot of lads that are listening to this that are thinking, to go to the MLS, I have to be Division 1. Well, no. I mean, it's like you said, it's trying to find the right fit and making sure the environment that they are in, they've got good coaches, good support, good resources, the players are like-minded like you, because you're a product of your own environment, and all those things, isn't it?
I would definitely advise the guys that are playing D2, D3 to be aware of the challenge though. And while it definitely happens, it's hard to say, oh, there's those 2 cases from D3 because while there's 2 cases there's hundreds at the D1 level.
Yeah, right. It's all relative.
And so if you are in that D3 level and D2 and you want to be seen, just be cognizant. You can be seen. Just be cognizant of that. Show up to more camps, speak to more coaches at the pro level. Do your due diligence to understand that you're all right. The scouts probably aren't coming to your school, so go find the scouts. And your talent's still there. I'm not knocking the talent, but it is harder than if you're playing at a Maryland where the MLS scouts live at. So it's just a different scene. But it definitely happens, and it's a very viable option. You just have to work a little bit harder to be seen sometimes.
Yeah, and like I always advise my clients to, in a college interview with a coach, ask questions more than giving statements.
100%.
And it's like, if I was sitting here talking to a college coach right now, I'll be saying to them, how many athletes have gone professional from your team? And what are your connections with clubs in the States going forward? And just hear what they have to say.
I would, there's a laundry list of questions. Really, realistically, because there is so many universities, feel free to interview the coach.
100%.
Because there's
Turn it around.
There's more options for you than you probably think. And you may be like, oh, I got an offer here, I need to go. Maybe, but probably not. And so I would definitely be asking, even around the NIL stuff, get an idea of how the coach feels about that, because some coaches are too old school and they'll bullshit you something, or they'll tell you something, and then you want to weed through that and try to figure out if they're telling the truth or not. However, I would be asking about NIL stuff. I'd ask about if you have opportunities with national teams come up, how do they feel about that? Now, keep in mind, the coaches are going to tell you what they want you to hear, what you want to hear. They're going to tell you that they're okay with it, but try to see if they're lying, because you may run into a position with coaches that they may not be as supportive, and so you just have to be careful with things like that. But ask the coaches more questions than they ask you.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Let's move into some success stories that you've got. I know you've helped a lot of athletes around the globe, mate.
Yeah.
I would love to hear some Kiwis that you've supported. That might be, obviously, we're a college company going through college system that have done really well.
Yeah. Well, I think firstly, the Kiwis deserve more credit than we could ever get for what we can achieve on the world stage. I love seeing Kiwis over in the States because we do such a good job. We are good enough athletes. We are good enough people and hard enough workers. And just because we come from a little country at the bottom of the earth, we love to show out. And I think we have a laundry list of examples of Kiwis that do well overseas. So in general, I think it's always worth going over there and giving it a crack. You've got the famous ones like the Stephen Adams of the world that obviously have cracked it, and he did the same thing at Pitt and then moved on, and then you've got national team players like the Ava Collins, Gabby Rennies, and Hannah Blake that's currently playing back here.
And Yella Jensen as well. She's at Pacific. No, she's from Palmerston North.
Yeah, good Palmy girl.
Mate, her parents are brilliant, eh? The nicest people, man.
There's a really good group of people that are playing over there and playing at the highest level you can here in New Zealand in front of 12,500 people on a Saturday with the US national team. And that's something that I think is really special, that and credit to Ava. Out of the girls, I think I've been representing Ava the longest, and her coach has been nice enough, and the school has let her. She was late to classes this semester because she was back here to play the US national team. She's back in Feb for the next tour when they come back, and she's going to miss classes then too. And so the school's been nice enough to allow her to do that. The coach is letting her go and play. He let her miss to come play at South Korea in Christchurch in the middle of season. And so that's really cool that coaches are supporting that, because now from an agent's perspective, Ava's got experience playing South Korea, the US women's national team, and I've watched her mark up against some of the best that will ever play. The Alex Morgans of the world, the Naima Gurmas that she had to mark up against. And now, in my situation, I've got film on her handling herself with the world's best. It's a dream 100%. For me. And so
at such a young age.
It's such a young age, She's got a 21st. She's not even 20, can't even drink in America yet. And so, it's really cool to see that those opportunities available. And she is getting challenged every day at St. John's, and those opportunities are there. And so, I think there's a few success stories out there. There's a lot, and there'll be a lot more to come. And I think I've noticed in the last 10 years a massive groundswell of young Kiwis wanting to go over to the States. And I think it's just extremely beneficial going back to the whole education piece, and I won't harp on it again, but
Yeah.
it's just really important to be able to do both. And I don't want to knock New Zealand, but until we catch up from our university sport realm, you're better off from a sporting point of view to head over there.
Have you ever seen any athletes that are like 15, 14 years old, and you look at them, you're like, man, those athletes have got some talent. Like, I'm going to keep my eye on them.
Yeah.
And no matter how talented they are, you still don't want to work with them, like, because
Yeah.
I've done something wrong or bad behavior or anything. Has that happened to you before?
So I've kind of got two different sides from it, neither of which are from the agent's lens though, because granted I'm still a relatively young age and I've been in it for 4 or 5 years now. So yes, you see it. I think to touch on that first, you meet people immediately, and because this is such a person industry, I've definitely talked to athletes that I've immediately said I'm not going to deal with that. Parents are a big thing. So I've had athletes that parents are a bit too much, and they might talk way too much and have their own opinions, and they share all their opinions. And then I've had numerous cases where you get to know the parents, you talk to them, they share all their thoughts, and then I talk to the athlete, and the athlete says the opposite of everything the parents have just told me.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, don't listen to Dad when he says this, and I actually don't like that, and it makes it real difficult for me because I want to work with the parents, but then I work for the athlete, and the athlete's success is my priority, and so I have to kind of go away and decide what I'm going to do moving forward. How do I go back to the parents and be like, I don't think this is the best plan of attack. I think you need to talk to your daughter. I think you need to talk to your son. Kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, you have to, right?
Yeah.
Because look, the end game is we want to help all athletes.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I dislike with an athlete is when they talk down on their parents in front of me.
Yeah.
Like, I've had a mother saying to me, oh, my child is actually really good at this position and they do fantastic.
Yeah.
And then I've had the athlete just completely shut down their mum in front of me. And I'm looking at them, I'm like, if I say that to my mum, mate, she would slap me. There's no chance I could do that. But and you think it's like the respect thing, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen parents that have looked at them and said, just wait a second, and then they go, and then that's fine. But then I've had parents just sit there and listen to listen to it, and I find it's quite. It's very disrespectful and it's very unprofessional of them.
Yeah, well, it's a coachability piece, isn't it? So those kids may not do too well when a coach has to scream at them because they're not touching the line at sprints. So it is something that's really important, and I think our jobs are very similar in that sense. In that, if I'm to send a girl over to Europe to a club that hasn't seen her play, let's say she's going to Italy, I've got a relationship with that Italian club, and they turn around and she ends up not being very coachable or not a good personality or whatever it might be. Now that club is probably going to black dot me as an agent, and then I'll never get another player in there because they don't trust my word.
Well, that's it.
So,
I mean, I've dealt with 2 situations in 8 years where my athlete's gone to the States and behaved quite poorly, been removed from the team, and it's gone back to bite us a little bit, and I had to send them our best player to in an All Blacks jersey. I'm just kidding. I didn't send them anything, but I had to be very nice to them because it took a lot to build that relationship. And as you mentioned, these are friendships, right?
Yeah.
We're not networking. These are friends, and these are friends that trust you.
Yeah.
And imagine sending a guy or a girl to the States and then just breaking that trust.
Yeah. And it can happen so quickly. So there is a responsibility, and I think that's where some athletes, especially at the agency level, may believe, and I don't see this a lot in New Zealand to be frank, but they may believe they are a little bit better than they are, and so they want more, and then they think more of themselves, and it just becomes this murky situation, and frankly they're the athletes I try to avoid.
Do you, when you're looking at athletes, because I know we definitely do, do you look at athletes' social media accounts before you represent them?
Oh yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah, well,
talk us through the levels of stalking that you do.
Yeah, so I'll give away all my secrets. Well, 100%. So because I have a personal brand strategy element of what I do in my day job, and I do work really hard to develop their personal brands and value what that means off the field. There is a commercial part in what I do in my recruiting because I want to work with athletes that I think I can market as well, because we do the sponsorships and endorsements, etc. So that's really important too. With that being said, it's not the be all end all. I'm happy to represent an athlete that doesn't have a massive brand, because at the end of the day, I'm there to support them on the field. That's the most important. Are they good at their sport?
Right.
But I do want to look at their socials because I want to know who they are as a person.
Yeah.
And I think you can tell a lot about a person by their social media. It's hard to say. I'm always turned away by like a lot of partying, alcohol, drinks, and all that.
You don't want to see a 15-year-old holding a cruiser in their hand.
Prefer not. No, I'm definitely turning the opposite direction on a lot of those.
Yeah.
Just because it makes me, I just want to find out more. I don't know if it would be a deal breaker, but I'm definitely like, ugh. And then if I think talking to them is the most important.
Yeah.
But yeah, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I always look on Twitter. Facebook's kind of fading out, but they're the main three. A good LinkedIn is pretty impressive if they've got a.
Well, that's the thing. Like they can use social media as a way to boost their career, because there's two case studies I can share. Lizzie Neal, she's at Northern Arizona, amazing golfer.
Yeah.
She had her private Instagram account called Lizzie Neal, which was just her and her friends and her family, and then she had Lizzie Neal Golf, and this is her doing videos in the backyard of her swinging clubs during lockdown, photos of the beautiful courses in Queenstown, photos of her playing a tournament and posting about how she did.
Yeah.
And the Northern Arizona coach signed her because of that.
Yep.
They saw that.
Yeah.
Another example, Aniela Jensen. Mm-hmm. She's got Aniela Jensen personal and Aniela Jensen soccer.
Yep.
And so on the soccer page, she posted all of her big highlights in the National Women's League, drills in the backyard, and all these sort of things. And Denisha Adams, who played for the US National Women's Soccer team, she had a great career at UCLA as well. Yep. Now she's the assistant coach at Pacific for the Tigers, D1 Cali. She said, the skill's dedicated. Yeah. I love this. Yeah. Like, where can we get more of these athletes?
100%. No, look, I love those stories. They're my favorite stories because it can be such an incredible opportunity to be seen and be taken seriously. I love the tour account idea. New Zealand still has a bit of the tall poppy syndrome culture that people don't want to put themselves out there, and while I respect that and that's fine, it's such a massive opportunity there, and it's good to hear those two stories. And you and I both have two accounts for that reason. We've both got personal ones and our business accounts, and we understand the importance of a personal brand and how far it can take you. And so, I always encourage all of my athletes to do more content around that, around their sport heavily, but also showing who they are off the field. I'm not going to get into all of that because we have to get a new SD card. But it's just so important to provide a platform for yourself to be seen, to be understood what you're about. And that way you can get seen, and coach is going to be like, oh yeah, all right, she's in her backyard still doing drills. She's not, kicking her feet up and not doing anything. And it was actually something that I noticed more. So most of my business is in the NWSL and in the States, and I've had countless professional coaches mention my clients' social medias to me in passing, whether it be in this, I try to pick it carefully because my client will know without talking about it. But I had one coach mention the amount of cookies she posts on her Instagram.
Oh, no.
Well, she does post a lot. But then what I wanted her to go away and do is post a ton of content during the off season. And I've said this to all of my athletes. In the off season, post a ton of content of you training and in the gym. And it might be annoying to your friends, but your friends ain't going to pay your bills. Yeah. And so, because coaches are looking. I promise you, they all follow you. They all look.
Oh, yeah.
Show them that you're out there training. And you don't need to be corny about it. Like, even if it is a boomerang of you jogging or kicking a ball against the wall or anything to show that you're out there. I tell you what, it goes a mile because professional and college coaches are looking, and I know that for a fact because they drop side comments to me, and so even encourage your trainer to take a wee video of you, even if it is. I know stories are an easy way to get into the personal brand game and building your socials because it does disappear, so it feels a little bit less committed, and so it doesn't need to be a reel, doesn't need to be an in-feed post at first. It's better if it is, but it can just post stories, start putting up content because the coaches will see that, and it sounds like you've already got those stories, and man, I can't even there's a lot of stories that I can tell on that.
Sure. I had a girl that signed a D1 scholarship, full ride, and signed her scholarship, was about to jump on a plane in a couple of days, and her coach sent me a message saying, if this photo isn't taken down on her Instagram account, she's done. The contract's torn up. Yeah. And she wasn't doing anything in the photo. It was someone in the background of the photo, and it was someone throwing a beer pong ball into a red cup. And another person doing a rude gesture in that photo.
Yeah.
And even though it was a great photo of her and her friend, but
Yeah.
there was two guys in the background
Yeah.
that could have costed her a scholarship valued at over $300K,
Yeah.
which was just crazy. And I think, you got the associated reputation. You're playing with something bigger than yourself. And I think that's what a lot of these young people need to understand.
Well, the American drinking culture is quite a bit different to New Zealand. And so while, you might be in high school at the woolshed having a party with all your mates and that's all well and good, it's pretty frowned upon at that age in America. And so instead of complain about it, just understand that it's a different culture. There's massive party culture in college, don't get me wrong, but the student athletes are held to a higher standard, as potentially they should be, because they are representing something bigger than themselves. And so just be cognizant of that. Play the game. If my best advice to young people, even the politics included and everything, just play the game. Understand that it is the way it is. Play the game, and it's going to get you further than if you try to fight the system all the time.
Yeah, no, for sure. So what are you doing now?
Yeah, so I've got a few hats on. I don't think I'll ever not have a few hats on, but so now I work for Halo Sport based here in Parnell, Auckland. However, we're owned by Dentsu Sports International, which is based out of Tokyo, and we've got relationships with agencies or sister agencies around the world, based out of London, LA, New York, Melbourne, all over. So yeah, big network there. So what I do, I'm in commercial sales, so we sell sports properties. I sell the sports properties assets around the country, predominantly a little bit up into the islands in Australia. And then I'm a personal brand strategist, so we work with all of our athletes at Halo, a few hundred rugby players, and we work through their personal brand strategy, so understanding who they are as a rugby player and building that platform to be able to enable commercial opportunities for them, and put a bit more money in their pocket, which is always good. And then lastly, I'm a women's football agent, or maybe firstly, it's a massive part of my life. So what I do there is, licensed to be an agent for women's footballers around the world. So I represent between 20 to 30, I should have that direct number, but women's footballers, and we work with clubs. My main clubs that I work with will be the WSL in England, the NWSL in the States, and then A-League down here. However, I do a lot of work with Portugal, Italy, France, Spain, Ireland, Scotland, Mexico now, as of this morning, actually, and so Mexico, and then Australia, obviously.
That's incredible.
So,
So I've seen on your Instagram, you're working with quite a lot of rugby players, right? So being a sports agent, you must have to be quite neutral.
I
got a question for you.
Yeah, no.
What's your favourite Super Rugby team?
Yeah, no, I can't answer that. I was actually laughing with TJ Perenara about that, because I was raised in Wanganui, so you always claim Hurricanes. But I do not have a favourite. I'll tell you what, a New Zealand team. That's my answer. I go for any New Zealand team.
There you go.
And Moana Pacifica. We've got a lot of guys up there. So I don't have any favourites. I always say my favourite team is whoever my athletes play.
That's literally what I was about to say. When someone's like, "What's your favourite college in the States?"
Yeah.
I'll be like, "Whichever one my athlete's wearing, like the shirt,
100%.
That's the one." But look, this has been real beneficial for a lot of people, parents, athletes, coaches, and so on. Let's say there's an athlete listening to this. They're in college. How can they get in touch with someone like you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very approachable on my socials. I've got a link tree that's a very easy way to get a hold of me. I like it to be very easy to get a hold of me. I'll be candid. I've been crazy busy the last couple of months. So if there's a few people I haven't got back to that have reached out for calls and things like that, I apologize. I probably should just email back and say I'm real busy at the moment.
That's a good thing, though. I mean, if you're busy.
Good busy.
High in demand.
But definitely reach out, especially if you're a women's footballer. I can probably be of most help from the contractual side there. Any rugby stuff, I'm not a rugby agent, and so I'd probably just point you to our agents. I obviously can help on the brand side, and then any young people that want to get into the industry, I love talking to them too.
Cool.
Anyone, feel free to reach out. I'm from today onwards, I'll tell you if I'm busy, and then I'll circle back, and I apologize to anyone listening that I haven't got back to.
No, that's all good. And look, I mean, as a recruitment agency, we build a lot of trust with our athletes over the course of 4 or 5 years. Like, we go out for wines and beers and coffees with parents all the time. And they always ask me, we want to go pro, who do we talk to? And I'm very reluctant to endorse people, but for you, I can do it sleeping well at night, mate. You're a
Thank
great
you.
guy. We've got a lot of mutual friends
Yeah,
in common.
a lot.
you Plymouth and Wanganui isn't too far away.
No.
What is it, 2.5 hours? And I think it's great what you do. So if any athletes can't get hold of you, I can just get them to message me and I'll put them in touch with you for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, the World Cup's coming.
Yeah.
That's going to be an exciting time for you, eh?
So excited. No, I'm fired up. I've got obviously the Kiwi girls going in the team, and there's a few other countries that might select some of my athletes, and that'd be awesome. Get them down here. I've got a lot of friends from the States coming down.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
cool.
It's going to be busy, mate. And then even on the agent piece, obviously I'm not in a lot of sports. I'm not in golf anymore and tennis and things like that. But with that being said, I would still love to talk to those athletes when they are looking for an agent.
Yeah. You can connect them to the right people, right?
Well, tell them what to look for. Like I said at the start, it is a murky industry. There's a lot of dodgy agents out there, and so I'd love to work with them so they understand. Just look for things. I'd love to help them look for things in a contract, with their representation contract. Just because I've heard so many horror stories, and I'd hate for Kiwis to get taken advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, one of my mates, he is a former All-White, played for New Zealand. I won't mention his name. And he lost a lot of money because his agency fumbled the bag on one specific thing, cost him a lot of money. So you do have to be careful, know someone that's switched on. But, I mean, you're super young. Like, how old are you?
28.
Mate, you're 2 years younger than me. And you're absolutely crushing it, mate. So
I'm trying.
Yeah, no,
Just getting started.
You're doing well. I'm going to be selfish, and it's great to have you here in New Zealand rather than in the US. And, look forward to a lot of our athletes working with you going forward, man. Because, platform sports is built around providing a platform for all athletes. Yeah. You know, we just had a guy and a girl recently go to the States, come back to New Zealand. Wasn't for them. Then they went to Australia, and we sent them a list. I sent them an email yesterday, a list of clubs and contact phone numbers of the clubs that they need to call and try and get a club in Australia to go play as well. So we're here for athletes, whichever avenue they decide to go in, and whether it's pro, we're happy to connect them with you. And
I think me coming back, the biggest thing that has changed, well, I wouldn't say changed, but it's become very strong, is how patriotic I am for New Zealand. Yeah. And so I want to do anything I can to help Kiwis show the world how special we are. And if that is getting more kids over into the world stage, be it Australia, be it the States, be it anywhere else, so that, another 5-10 years, we've got the rest of the world saying, we need to find more Kiwis to put on this team. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So that's definitely a massive goal of mine.
And I know that we're sitting here in Auckland, New Zealand right now. So we've been raging on about how good New Zealanders are. We do work in 13 different countries, so you've got to give my international listeners a shout out. But I mean, if there's any international athletes, you'll be happy to chat with them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool. No, definitely. Whether it's going pro or anything else, I've got way too much experience around the F1, H1B, OPT, CPT. You name the visa, I've probably been around it or had it. And so, I'm more than happy to help.
Cool. No, I appreciate your time, man. Look forward to staying in touch.
Awesome.
And I would love to know that answer to who's your favourite team maybe a bit later.
Yeah, after a few beers.
When the cameras are off. No, cheers, brother, for your time. Appreciate you. Easy.